We can see here that there's a real combination of passion, technology, purpose for creating change in our communities and around the world. And as a young leader, what are the driving factor, Caritta, that inspired you to create your company and how you've led others to follow you and really build something substantial?
I think quite a lot of us believe that we always have to be the one that comes with the idea or be the innovator to come up with the big change. But sometimes it's about also finding the people that share the similar passion, and what they want to make a change, it becomes very contagious. So for example, Tespack, what we do, we specialize in smart mobile energy solutions by basically making it possible for personal and companies to work in any remote locations while getting access to smart energy and monitoring their battery performances. So basically, everything started or originated with one of my co-founders, our CEO, Mario. He had a background in special forces, so he used to work on the field, being deployed in the middle of nowhere. And if you don't have access to electricity, it can become a matter of life and death. So from his experiences, I met him back at the university here in London, by the way, and it was his passion to realize, to make a change, that we need to have portable energy solutions that can really support organizations and companies. I mean, everything is connected to energy, especially in the last few years. I'm sure every one of us agrees more than ever that if we have no electricity or energy, we are in massive troubles. But he wanted to make sure that individuals would stay powered when on the field. And it was his idea that was so passionate that I felt that I wanted to be part of this mission to make a change. And that's how Tespack got started. So it's not always from our own, let's say, personal experiences. Sometimes it's about also the people that we surround ourselves with. And that's basically how today, now with my company, we're working with the United Nations, with Audi, Ernst & Young. We're making a true change already on the field. And coming from a country where education is being regarded as one of the top most biggest reasons that can make a change for any developments of countries, I have really seen how access to energy can have an impact in providing access to education.
Mm. Yeah, education is a really big topic right now, especially with the advent of ChatGPT and all the new technologies and the gap that exists in the current education system. Giulia, how do you think you kind of overcame your traditional education system and now are entering what could be considered a whole new world, a new frontier that young people are embarking their careers on and into?
Yeah, I quite like what Caritta mentioned actually. Like, her background is not traditionally in technology, but she went on and found a technology company, and my background is not traditionally international relations, where you say you need to study international relations to work in government, right? And I see that this versatility and actually this ability to be changing with the circumstances an ideal skill for the workforce of the future. Mm-hmm. The adaptability as well, to be adaptable, and of course being able to understand the technologies that are going on, like ChatGPT, as mentioned, AI revolution, and also apply to sectors that you wouldn't think needed or they wouldn't think they'll be applicable to. So 2023 actually for the European Commission is the year of skills, and there are a lot of initiatives as well. And last year, 2022, was the year of youth, and I think it was a nice continuum to say, how do we upskill our youth going forward? Also, if you consider that right now, in this specific moment, like 50% of the work population is below the age of 30. Of course, the global north, so Europe, North America, as we call it, is having a more aging population. Global south is more of a youth population, and also like you have to think, how can we upskill this global workforce to be able to give them the right tools to not only create new technologies, but understand new technologies using the right way as well. Ethics is a huge part of it, of course. Not an expert in ethics, but that's something that we should be talking about, how to use these new tools. And I think one last piece for me would be a critical skill would be actually critical thinking. How do we make sure that these young people discern between what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, so resilience, adaptability, what I hear there is a lot of curiosity about problem solving and how to implement that into your lifelong passion and having that fuel your companies. And so how have you been able to leverage Treeapp and your community to inspire others to drive change?
So the whole concept of the app is obviously when you use it, you're planting trees. As I'm sure you all know, our world has been widely deforested over the last 100 years. And really what we're trying to do is to focus on the regions that have been the most deforested and focus all of our planting efforts there. So for example, our planting sites in Madagascar. Madagascar is a country that has been deforested up to 80% in the last 50 years. So there's a lot of work that needs to be going on to rewild the land, to obviously bring back biodiversity. So really the way we've obviously tried to inspire people to make changes, how can we make change, how can we make impact accessible? A lot of people nowadays, most people I'd say, are conscious that climate change is happening and everybody wants to do something about it. But really there's three main problems. Number one, people don't have the time, they don't have the money, and they don't really have the know-how, they don't know how to go about it. So our solution was to let anyone have an impact for free every day in less than a minute. And we would take care obviously of doing it properly, using obviously forestry experts, the right planting methodology, monitoring practices, etc. So I think that's the first part is, what we've done is obviously make impact accessible. I think the second part is that when you're watching an ad on our app, when you're discovering new brands, we're only promoting sustainable products. So this means that not only you have an impact by obviously watching an ad, which will want to plant a tree, but you can also change your consumer habits by discovering alternatives to what's out there. I'll give you an example. We work with a company called Small. They're laundry pods, which are basically biodegradable, much more sustainable than most of the products you find in the supermarket or on retail. So these are one of the brands that we're putting forward on the app.
And amazing. And do you guys know each other? Are you connected in your establishments and your communities? Yeah?
Well, we met last week.
Okay.
Because we prepared that call, right?
Yes.
You mentioned before, I was on the 30 and the 30. We're also part of that community of my co-founders. There's also the One Young Word program. It's there's definitely a few.
And I ask that because you are very influential young leaders and creating amazing opportunities for others to be inspired. But how do you feel in the current ecosystem and in potentially the companies that you thought about working with or working for? How do you feel they're supporting young leaders in creating change that we all know is very necessary in the year 2023? Giulia?
Yeah, I can maybe start because obviously I'm now founder, so I work in corporate and in government, etc. I think, from more of an institutional and obviously corporate point of view, there is support out there. I do feel sometimes that this support is being tokenized. So I also work with the UN, as part of the official unit constituency of the UN. So for people to actually advocate at the UN, major summits, for example, the UN COP, so the climate change summit that happens every year, etc. And I do see sometimes that the support is there, but only for few leaders. Sometimes the process is not really equitable. Of course, for example, there are many initiatives as the European Year of Youth and European Year of Skills, but sometimes I feel that we're just gonna get some new people in, and then the support is not as continuous. There are a lot of programs out there. Actually, One Young World, it's definitely one. There is the United Nations Sustainable Development Innovation Lab as well. sometimes I feel that there are a lot of things there, they are scattered. So like the purpose of creating an ecosystem where all young people, established leaders, executives, like the workforce really come together and collaborate together is really maybe the missing piece. Obviously, I'm saying this based on like different experiences that I have. Of course, there are realities where youth and established workforce are already quite well integrated, and like I really much hope that this is going to be the trend going forward because we have big challenges ahead of us, as Jules mentioned, climate change one, rise of completely new way of working, and we can't solve that unless we all work together.
Absolutely. Caritta, as a young leader, what kind of difficulties, challenges have you had to overcome to create such an impactful business?
Well, I mean, if I would be going through everything, we'd be here for God knows how long. To be honest, every single day there is a challenge. But I think one of the biggest, I will say, learnings for me was that we all know what hardware and software means. But if you are building hardware companies, trust me, the word hard, it really is freaking hard. There is so much more things that you need to go through as a founder than just a company that does only software. Especially when COVID came, imagine the whole production industry, the logistics, everything came into a halt. So how can companies survive? It became quite a massive journey for a lot of companies. So today we focus on hardware as well as software. So we pivoted, we found ways of also ensuring that there are revenue models that can support us, even if there are disruptions taking place. So to me, that has been one of the biggest, definitely learning industries, how to solve through challenges that goes around our hardware industry. At the same time, when we started about 6-7 years ago, I still remember when we would approach a lot of people, like investors, and we'd be pitching to them. So many of them would come back and tell us, like, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on solar, like energy generation? Are you focused on battery storage or smart IoT? I mean, you can't really do everything. It's quite shocking that this is still, actually even today, I still keep hearing quite a lot. But the future of technology is not about just one vertical or one industry. It's actually about combining all of it together. So definitely for me or for our company, it has been how to find those right type of people that understand is that some of the most successful companies out there are those ones that can leverage both sides and put it together. I mean, you cannot just have software. When you run software, it needs to run on hardware. And it's quite obvious, but in the end, a lot of people don't still seem to understand that. And especially a lot of funds and investors out there. I don't know the exact statistics, but I'm pretty sure it's close to 90% of purely software focused. And they even believe that in order to solve climate challenges or, how to focus on energy, that it starts from software, which is quite ridiculous. I mean, in the end, again, future of technology, it relies on both sides. So yes, it has been the biggest challenge, how to go through as a founder in the hardware industry. So I always like to really raise it up and just try to get more people also aware about, these things that we definitely want to have also change makers in both sides of the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, yours is software. Don't deal with the hardware, correct if I'm wrong, but you deal with trees.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting kind of holistic picture you're painting there. It's going from software and social media and ads and then delivering something tangible into the ground, into the earth that has a positive impact, obviously. And how does that storytelling go for you? Do people respond to it? Do they resonate? How do people react?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we work maybe explaining sort of the process. So it's one thing to sort of tell people you're planting trees for them. It's another to explain how it works, to make sure that they understand we're doing it in the right way. So I mean, really, when we started the company, the first thing we did wasn't to sort of start planning how would the app look like, how would we code it, etc. What would be the logic, etc. It was much more, okay, first of all, let's look at how we'd actually put tree planting operations in place. So we have Treeapp managed planting sites here in the UK, but we also work with a lot of local communities around the world to plant the trees. And so we basically struck agreements with communities of farmers around the world. For example, I used to work with Madagascar earlier. And then we have to look at the due diligence that needs to be put in place to ensure that the trees are not going to be chopped down, that they're going to be planted properly, etc. So we hired a team of forestry experts that basically drew out a very clear due diligence process. So things around, I mentioned tree planting methodology, making sure that we're planting the right species, so endemic species in the ground, making sure that we're using tree nurseries to ensure the higher survival rate. And then obviously the monitoring using sensors, using drone footage, using satellite imagery, etc. And so all of this work we did before even starting to think about the software, how the app would look like, what would be our go-to-market strategy, how can we get new clients, etc. Because in the end, if you're not doing tree planting properly, then if people are not, if you don't show them that you're doing it properly, nobody's going to use your app. So once we have those sort of due diligence monitoring part of the tree planting covered, it was then about how can we tell that story, how can we show that to our community. And that's about obviously using a lot of visuals, so providing photos, videos of the projects, showing the growth of the trees, having before and after pictures, and that's something that our community loves. And obviously it's also about leveraging technology as much as we can. So we use a platform called Restore.eco, which was created by Google and ETH Zurich, and basically they use satellite imagery to geotag forestry projects. So you can see exactly the evolution of the crop via obviously satellite imagery, and you can infer a lot of statistics from it. And then once you have those statistics, how can you make these statistics digestible for your community? Because if I tell you that this tree across its lifetime will absorb X kg of carbon, it might not ring a bell for many people. So how can we use comparables? For example, well, across its lifetime, the tree will absorb the equivalent of 3 trips from London to Paris by flight. So trying to make it a bit more tangible. So that's also some of the work we're doing.
Such important work. It's really inspiring to hear these visions that you have for the future. And I wonder how you see this changing in the future. We're on the cusp of paradigm shifts and massive change, huge disruption in our futures. So what advice would you give, or what do you see as the kind of main focus that young people, younger than yourselves, need to focus on in the next coming years? Caritta?
Well, I think we've been talking a lot about AI, digital things, and we all know that the future is there. So there is already, I think everyone knows what are the future, let's say the hard skills, what you should be learning. But I really feel if you truly want to stand out and be successful, you really need to put a lot of effort in your soft skills. That is about presenting, communication skills, building relationships. And I feel that a lot of people, we keep forgetting that. When we tend to sit behind the screens, now we use the chat GPT doing a lot of work for us, sending emails. But businesses and, us humans, it's about creating interactions and relationships. We don't make sales just because you're selling a product. You actually create the relationship. And just like, even Ali Barsa mentioned earlier, it's about building trust. So if anything, I really would love to still, emphasize the importance of having soft skills. We tend to completely forget that and think that as humans we can just work like machines, but it's not true. So if we look into the future, of course you do need to have the skill sets, whether it's around AI, software, whatever that is. But really, if you truly want to make a change and stand out, become an amazing communicator, become an amazing relationship builder. Now these are skills that are super, super rare. It's much rare to find somebody who can actually create a true connection with another person than a coder. There is actually much more coders and already people that are very much aware with the digital technical skills that we have than about the soft skill set. So that would be really my advice, to everyone. Do not disregard the importance of soft skills.
Giulia, what are your thoughts?
I like what Caritta mentioned, and just to maybe complement that, as the world is becoming more global, we need to be able to communicate across culture. So say include cultural intelligence more than emotional intelligence, those two skills. And again, maybe as the world is evolving as much faster than before, I think one useful skill to have is the ability to learn, like learning how to learn. And this is something that, like, for example, I've used myself when I moved from being an engineer, like working in the field, to work for governments, learning how to learn, like apprend very quickly, and strategic thinking as well, like understanding what is the futures like look like, what are those technologies. I wouldn't think a word that we like to use is foresight. What are those technologies, those pivotal points that we know they are coming, and we have the opportunity to actually navigate them and like be on the cusp of the wave, or actually be under the wave. So understanding those points and actually how can we make them beneficial for us and our company as well.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. We have, today's conversations are going to be a lot on technology, and really those of us sitting in the audience today are actually not going to be the real see the real momentum and the real opportunities that the technology that we're talking about today is going to bring. It's really for this next generation, our children, who are going to be feeling the impact of AI and the metaverse and all of these components of those technologies in their lives. And I wonder, Jules, how you feel about our responsibilities and our consciousness about how we're using technology right now in thinking about the people who will be using it in the future.
So I think coming back to Giulia's points, it's all about making sure that you adapt. And so when you look at the new technologies, so some challenge that we had personally when we founded Treeapp was we launched basically in April 2020. Now I'm not sure if that rings a bell for anyone, but that's basically when lockdown was at its peak, and so we had to adapt because we couldn't do any events in person. We couldn't meet with the team. Everything had to be online. And what we've noticed since we see that everything has come back to normal is that people don't want to go back to the way it used to be. So, for example, some of our team members, they're clearly saying, look, I much rather work from home. I'm much more productive there when I come to the office. There's many distractions, etc. And I think it's important that we embrace that change. So, basically accept that, okay, the way people are working is different. How can we use technology to make it as efficient, if not more efficient, than we used to do it before? So there's a lot of great tools out there that are getting better and better with these things that, OpenAI was mentioned a lot, and in the keynote speech was mentioned a lot as well. All of these tools, they can help us do so many different things, working internally with our team to do more efficient meetings, to take notes better, to have much better project management. But it can also be super useful, for example, with us to leverage our relationship with all of the communities that we're working on the ground. All of the monitoring for the trees, technology is massive for that. I mean, there's a lot of improvements right now. So in the information you can get from, for example, drone footage. I mean, there's a company called Silver that you might know that's doing a lot in that space right now, UK. So yeah, I think it's about embracing it. It's about trying to understand how it can be applied to your business.
Great. I wonder, I'd like to open up to the floor, the audience, for some questions for our young leaders, and see if you can gain some insights into. Okay, a question over there. Hi, Alan.
I'm curious, we have some young leaders, and I know some of the organisations are associated. Why don't you give some context of where experience comes from having businesses? So the role of advisors and the role of people that you surround yourself with and how they support people.
Yeah, so the question was around how you have leveraged advisors, mentors, those with experience in your industries to support your growth and the process of establishing your organizations.
Yeah, happy to start. I think it's super important. Especially, for example, again, coming back to what I know, which is what we're doing, tree planting. And we see some people that have been doing it for a long time. have a lot more knowledge about how to do things the right way. They've failed already, so they know how to not fail again, or at least fail less. I think specific expertise is super important. I think just industry knowledge in general can be super useful. So when you look at a company, when you're growing it, you have those advisors that can help you to internally be more efficient, using the right softwares, the right practices, the right methodology. But you also have, I'd say, advisors that can help you for external things. So, in our when we look at our investors, we have fund, but we also have a lot of business angels that are strategic investors for us because they can introduce us to more brands, they can introduce us to other companies that can work with us. They can look at what we're doing and say, well, actually, I'm not sure if this is the approach that you should be taking. So, I think it's crucial to have more experienced people that are sort of looking at your business and providing feedback every step of the way. And I think it's relevant when you're just getting started, and it becomes more and more relevant as you continue to grow.
Caritta, any words on that?
I completely agree. Of course, it's important to have mentors and advisors and surround people that can support you, that can provide you advice, but also criticism. So it will really allow you to make decisions accordingly. In the end, you have to decide what information you want to listen to and what you want to disregard. Because the decision in the end is yours. You don't know whether it's right or wrong, but you simply need to make decisions. I think at the same time also it's very important to surround yourself and have really close connections and communications open with your customers and with your partners. They might not have the type of high-level mentoring of how to grow the business, but they are actually your customers and users, so they provide better insight than most of any other people. And I've seen a lot of companies, they seem to forget that quite often. So if anything, I really love to have a very close relationship with a lot of our partners and customers to really understand what are the challenges, how we can support them, but also creating friendship. So this is taking me back even how I earlier said, is that we really, really disregard the importance of communicating with people and creating relationships. So that, if anything, will help you to grow with your, with your own expertise, as well in the end, it will also support your company growth.
And Giulia, the European Commission, you must be, a lot of experience in those buildings that you're working in.
Yeah, and that's also something that I wanted to mention, of course. I think during my career I was lucky enough to have access to not only amazing mentors, but also amazing allies. A lot of work that I do is also in gender equality, and some of the most strong advocate for myself were actually experienced male men, gentlemen, yeah. But to bring it back to youth, maybe I would just like to offer a different point of view, like based on what I said, that going forward I'd like to see a bit more collaboration and integration between generations. And it's something that, again, with you at the European Commission, is to have diverse mentoring, where, for example, a youth professional mentors experienced professional. So it's like experienced professional was asking for feedback to myself, like other people. And we also an idea that we use and that's in action is a youth sounding board, where we have youth people, even younger than myself, Generation Z and like Generation Alpha, almost basically sitting together with boards and giving their advice, their expertise. And I think those two are two nice ideas to actually have this cross collaboration between generation.
Brilliant, excellent. A few final moments here. Did anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask our panelists today? Yeah, down here in front.
Just like Andrew Smith and Matt Capital, we did a related question. We talked about the youth and maybe upskilling some of the youth, but I wondered what you work on upskilling some of the older folks.
Yeah. Great, upskilling some of the older folks. Yeah, I think that's a really key question. I wonder, in your organizations or in your strategy moving forward, there's always going to be that skills gap. Even for students graduating today, there's a massive gap in the skills required for the next 5 to 10 years. And how do you address that in your own organizations and the work that you do?
Well, I think for my company, we're, for example, we're a Finnish company, but I'm actually the only Finnish person in my team. So my rest of my colleagues, they're from South America, they're from Europe, from Asia, pretty much all over the places. We have different age groups, and something I do think from the beginning, when we look into hiring or growing the company, it's always been about finding the right person that fits in terms of personality and chemistry. So we actually depart from the point of view from starting off your degree, where you have studied, what is your professional background. I mean, necessarily, of course, if I'm hiring a coder, of course, I want somebody who knows how to code. So I'm not saying that I don't look into that, but it's more important than ever to look into how the person is in itself. Skills can be taught, but personality or attitude, honestly, you either have it or you don't. It's really, really hard to grow. Of course, it can take time and you can change, but I think that that's something important. I'm gonna be very honest in there, I do believe that a lot of current youth generation, they seem to think that they are the ones who will make the change, that they know a lot of things, and it's the older generation that make the problems, or they are the ones to blame for certain things. I'm sure every one of us, we have read a lot of this type of, rhetorics in media. And that's why it's important to realize that actually it's us, the youth, let's say, we know nothing. We think that we know a lot, and if anything, we might have the technical skills, but it is about the experience and expertise. For example, dealing in different regions, like what Giulia also, mentions, about understanding cultures. A lot of us, we don't have that yet, especially, after the pandemic, most of us were sitting behind the screens and we were not able to even travel and move around. You do not get that type of expertise or experience unless you travel, you meet with people, and that's something where, other generations can provide the most valuable advice and support for us. So again, we should look into the person in itself, something like we do in my company, and not always emphasize too much about the certain skill sets, because again, even today with OpenAI and everything, any one of us can pretty much learn whatever we want to.
Yeah, I think the 3 words to end today's panel, we have come to an end, are resilience, adaptability, curiosity, and allow that to fuel innovation and problem solving for the world, not only for these young leaders who are working towards change, but also for next generations who are coming up, and how you can integrate that into your own organizations and be a part of the journey and support the change that is so necessarily needed. Thank you very much to our panelists. A round of applause for their fantastic work that they've established.